Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Good to be here with you. Yay, Untangled, episode 150. I'm so happy to be connecting with all of you around the world. Welcome. Settle in, get a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, maybe a soda, lemon water. Whatever is your preference, grab it, have a seat, and let's dive in. I missed you guys last week. I was in the Sinai desert hanging out with God, literally hanging out with God. And I am back to share the stories with you and to share what God wanted me to share with you today. We love God. We are God. You have an aspect of God inside of you. I have an aspect of God inside of me. So magical and mystical. It's so crazy to think about how this all works. Like that we all came from this one universal light, this one universal consciousness. We all came from it. We're not separate or different, even though we are unique expressions of that one universal light. And somehow we found ourselves in these human bodies, right? Living this human life, going around, riding bicycles, swimming in oceans, eating pizza, having children, and yet we're these miraculous aspects of this one universal consciousness that I call God. It's fascinating. Fascinating. Anywho, let's get going. Before I do, a couple of things I wanted to offer up to you guys. Two things. December 28th, 12 p.m. California time, I am doing a 2-hour live event called Opening 2026. Link is down below. It's about closing out 2025 and opening into 2026. I haven't done an event like this in a couple of years. I think it's really important. 2025 was the most transformational year of my life, personally. And I think it was very, um, I think it was, I think it's a huge stepping stone for most of us. And so being able to honor that, we will do that in the class and then opening up to probably one of the most transformational years of our lives, 2026. A massive timeline shift, turning point that's going to happen for so many of us. And if you're coming along on the ride with me, we're going to embody more of God's light and let our entire lives change by integrating more of God's light into our bodies. Second, so that's opening 2026. The second thing is we have a class that I'm doing January 14th, begins January 14th, 21 Days with Jesus. I haven't done a class like this before. It will be life-changing. Life-changing. 21 days of sitting with Jesus. If you want to build a stronger relationship with Jesus, if you're curious about Jesus, if you want to learn about him, feel him, talk with him, let him change your life the way he has changed mine, join us. Link is down below in the description box as well. It will not be a religious class. It will be a relationship class with Jesus. Okay. Let's get going. If you are in my SOAR community, you've heard this story. You heard this all yesterday, but let's see what God wants to share today with regards to the travel to Sinai in the Sinai desert. So I would say about 2 months ago, a friend of mine in our community here in SOAR, she was doing a retreat in the Sinai desert, a camping retreat in the Sinai desert. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Tell me more. And so she was sharing with me that they camp out there for 6 nights and the power of it all and blah, blah, blah. And my whole body was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do that. I don't know when, but I'm going to do that. That was a couple of months ago. And I would say maybe a month ago. Let's see what it is at December. Yeah, about a month ago. I'd come home from a trip to Wyoming. And I woke up in the morning and I heard Jesus say to me, it's time to go to the desert. It's time to go to the Sinai desert. And I wasn't planning on going in December. I had things planned. I had a class planned that I was going to do. Um, but I do whatever Jesus says. I follow. I follow God. I follow Jesus. Handed my whole life over to them. So I said, okay. And reached out to my friend and I said, hey, who was the guide that guided you? And I got their information and I planned the trip. And 3 weeks later, I was off to the Sinai Desert. I was also told by God to not share with anyone where I was going so that energetically it could be a real clear and pure trip, which was very difficult for me because I like to share everything on social media and with my SOAR community. So I really wanted to share everything with you guys, and I couldn't. And not only that, but I was offline, completely offline, which I haven't done in many, many years. I'm usually either on my email or doing a video for my SOAR community or doing a video for social media. I'm always doing something. And so I was offline completely. And it was just me and Yeshua and God in the Sinai desert. I had no idea why I was going. But what I did know is that I was being called there. I did know that it was going to be another initiation. I do know that when I go through initiations, they're not typically love and light and like just all bliss. I know initiations are typically going to show me um, difficulties, challenges, strongholds that pull me from God. Stronghold is something that you have in your life, whether it's a behavior or a belief, a limiting thought, a way of being that has a grip on you, right? And it controls you almost. And it truly strongholds are how the whole of humanity is controlled. We're controlled by strongholds, by pleasures, by things that feel good. And I mean, what better way to control a population, a human population, than by creating temptation and desires that the human will enjoy and then baiting them into behaviors that they become addicted to. And all of that which pulls them from their divine essence and their divine connection. So, anyway, I knew it was going to be an initiation. I was a tad bit nervous, to say the least. I was not excited. I wasn't like, yeah, I was super grateful, very, very grateful, very grateful, very grateful. And I knew no matter what, I was in for the ride. My hands were up, seatbelt was on. I was up, I was in for the ride. And when I got to the desert, I slept for an entire 24 hours at the hotel, and then I get up in the morning and off we go into the desert. I didn't really have an itinerary. I wasn't sure exactly what we were doing. I wasn't sure where we were staying in the desert. I didn't know anything. I just knew what we were camping. I knew there'd be camels. and I knew I'd be meeting God. I knew I'd meet with God. Um, And so in the morning, the guide picks me up in Dohab. We drive about an hour into the desert. By the way, when I saw the desert, the Sinai Desert over the ground when I was flying in at night, um, I the energy from the desert in the evening, the energy of that desert, holy Moses, no pun intended. But wow, man, the energy, it was otherworldly to say the least. It was otherworldly, profound energy from the airplane. So I really couldn't wait to get into the desert. So I get there and I get on my little camel, and we have about a 3-hour camel ride to the location where we were going to be resting, sleeping. And, again, I didn't know what it was gonna look like or where. And so for 3 hours, I was on this camel, and this young Bedouin native was guiding me on his camel, and he was quiet, didn't speak English. So I really got to spend 3 hours entering into this kind of portal. And just remember this mantra that I kept saying. The mantra was something in the to the effect of um, like, God, you can have all of me. Um, show me, God, show me, God, use me, God, take all of me. Like, just really handing everything to God, everything. Um, my purpose, my life, my mission, like anything that is getting in the way, God, take it. Like, you have all of me, and just really surrendering and committing fully to God. And so it was just this mantra over and over and over for 3 hours, and, it was the fastest 3-hour camel ride I've ever been on in my I've never been on a camel, but it was the fastest 3 hours ever. I don't know how when I heard that it was a 3-hour trip, I was like, "Wow, that went by so fast." I was definitely in a trance, kind of, getting prepared for whatever was gonna happen. Um, and when we got to the location, it was this incredible cave. This and I was so happy to know that I would be in a cave because so many of Jesus's initiations were in caves. A lot of initiations are in caves. A lot of masters sit in deep contemplation and in deep mastery in caves. There's something profound and powerful about caves. And so when I saw this massive cave, it was on the ground. Um, when I saw this really huge cave, I just knew, I wasn't in charge. I wasn't planning this trip, that God was planning this trip for me. And so, I get off the camel and I grab my little iPad that I took with me so that I could write, and I go off. The desert, you guys, was just there's no words for it. It's got these massive rock formations with all these caves all around it. Um, these caves, they used to bury gold and other things in these caves. And eventually people figured out that there were things buried in these rocks, and so they would learn where to open up the rock to find these treasures, hidden treasures, so to speak. Um, and So I'm walking around. The desert is so quiet, so quiet, and I can feel the power of God. I've never felt God like I felt in that moment. And I can feel Jesus as usual with me, walking with me, guiding me, telling me where to go, where to sit. So I go and sit on this rock and I close my eyes. This was about an hour of being there. I close my eyes and I immediately feel Jesus to the right of me. And he's standing above me and he has his hands above the top of my head, kind of like this. And he says, "She's ready. She's ready." And I can feel the presence of God coming into the field, coming into the space. And the best way to describe this would be just this essence, this power, this force, this energy. You could say it was a light, but it wasn't I didn't see a bright light. I could just feel this presence coming in. And um I could feel Jesus speaking to this presence and saying, "She's ready." And I didn't really know what he was talking about. But he just kept saying, "She's ready." And I felt God's this light or this energy, this presence, this force come into my body very subtly. It wasn't this profound moment. It wasn't a blissful state. I wasn't in this love and light state, high frequency, high vibe. It wasn't like that. It was very grounded, um, very subtle, you almost wouldn't even know anything was happening except that I could hear Jesus and I could feel this presence, right? And I knew something was happening. I didn't need to figure it out. I didn't need to do anything with it. And I think this is an important piece for those of you that are interested in connecting deeper with either Jesus or God, like this essence and this light of God, is to not have an attachment or an expectation of it because you'll be disappointed. You're going to think, oh my God, if I connect with God, I should feel this profound light and I should feel this bliss and I should feel this, and that might not happen. And does that mean that God isn't there? Does that mean that Yeshua isn't there? No, it just means that you have an expectation of how it's supposed to go and you're not in charge. And so you're sabotaging the experience because you are expecting it to be a certain way. And so my recommendation is to let go of all expectation. Don't have an expectation of anything and you'll experience everything. And so I was sitting on that rock and I was just hearing Yeshua saying she's ready, um, you know, let the initiation sort of begin, kind of feeling she's prepared, she's ready, she's prepared. I didn't ask questions. I wasn't like, what are you talking about? What do you mean I'm ready? What do I need to do anything? I don't do that. I don't have any control when it comes to my walk with Yeshua and my service to God. I don't try to figure it out. The easiest way to deal with God and Yeshua is to not figure it out and not ask a lot of questions. Just go with the flow. Just go with what's arising. It's a lot easier. Um, a lot easier. So I sat there for about 30 minutes and I just let whatever was happening happen. But I can tell you that feeling of knowing God was there, man, oh man, you guys, wowzers. Like as I was sitting on that rock, I realized, man, and Jesus was saying to me, he says, he uh, he brought me to this desert because this is where so many and this is not the only place in the world. I'm not saying that this is not black or white, but what he was sharing with me, at least in his lifetime, was that this area was a really activating part of uh, people's experiences with God. They were able to hear God very clearly in this desert. They were able to connect to God very clearly in this desert. Um, Yeshua walked this desert many, many times, connecting deeply to God. Um, and so it's a beautiful initiation for anyone that has the capacity to go there with the intention of connecting to that to God. It's very clear. It's almost like it's like um, a telephone wire straight to God. Um, so anywho, to be able to the purity of God is what I felt, real purity. There was no distraction, right? Complete silence, this powerful essence. And the more I have these experiences like this, the more I realize that there is absolutely, unequivocally, without a doubt, an external God. I mean, isn't it obvious? Didn't we come from somewhere other than here? Right? We didn't just manifest. Um, hold on, I have to turn my heater off. I think the greatest gift that humanity can be served is the real, tangible, physical, and energetic experience of God, because then you'll realize that there is an external God. There is a God outside of us, and what a beautiful, humbling, incredible awareness to remember that. And it's kind of silly that we wouldn't recognize that or remember that. It's like, where did we think we came from? And then what a gift, because then you begin to have and build and create a really intimate relationship with what that is. What is that? What is God? What is it? How does it communicate? How does it feel? How does it move? Why? Why is it coming into our field more and more? Why is it getting louder? Why is this consciousness of God beginning to kind of sweep over the planet now more than ever, perhaps, right? We're starting to wake up, we're starting to look up. It's the natural process of evolution. And so may we all begin to tangibly experience, physically experience God. We realize, oh, there's an external God, all right. It's trying to wake us up into the remembrance of who we are and that we're not here to do this alone. Okay, so anywho, back to the story. Back to the story. Um, all right, I get some sort of initiation. I don't know what it's all about. I have no idea. It was crickets. I'm just sitting there twiddling my thumbs, being in gratitude, absolute gratitude for where I was, a humbled gratitude, always gratitude. Never a moment goes by when I am with Yeshua and when I am connecting in these moments that I do not find deep gratitude. Shame on me if I ever have experiences like that where I don't find deep gratitude, and knowing that I am privileged to be able to be there and privileged to be able to sit there and privileged to not have a busy life. Gratitude is our greatest tool of humility. And anywho, so I walk around the desert with my iPad and I'm writing for the next couple of hours. And I'm not hungry. I don't feel like eating. Um, I just feel like sitting in that silence. And it comes to dinner, and I go into the cave, and they're making dinner. And to be completely honest, I wasn't hungry at all. And there was this intuitiveness that was like, Laura, you probably shouldn't eat. But I wanted to respect um, the guide, and he spent this time making this incredible dish of it was chicken and carrots and potatoes. It smelled so good, and, anyway, I was going to eat it. Um, I was gonna eat it. So, I I'm eating the dish and, just taking in the scenery, sitting in this cave, just being so grateful, just so grateful. And then all of a sudden, within, 20, 30 minutes, I'm like, "Uh-oh, Houston, we have a problem. We have a serious problem." I started to get really sick, like, really sick, um, and I could feel it. You know that feeling where you're like, "Oh, this is not gonna go well." We are now on the train of sickness train. We've just jumped on the sickness train. You just bought a ticket to Sickville. Um, so I knew I was in trouble. I knew I was in trouble. And anyway, about 30 minutes after eating that dish, I proceeded to run out of the cave and get real sick, very sick. And I was sick all night long, um, very sick all night long. And I couldn't help but kind of chuckle like, really? 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 Come on, guys. Night one, I wasn't upset. I wasn't disappointed. I wasn't angry. I was just kind of chuckling. Like, all right, use me. Do with me what you will. Do with me what you will. I have come to a real deep surrendering when it comes to working with Jesus and God, a real deep surrendering. I never, ever, ever, ever look at anything as a mistake. I never say, ever, why did this happen? I never say, this shouldn't have happened. Never. That would be such a disrespect, in my opinion, to working with Yeshua, as if he would make a mistake in my life, as if he would put me in a position that I wasn't supposed to be in. Like, it's so disrespectful for me to even imagine thinking that. I just would never think that. I would never do that. Doesn't even cross my mind at this point anymore. Like, whatever happens, I know without a shadow of a doubt that I am guided and watched and held, and that is exactly as planned, perfectly as planned, right? Good job. Now she's sick. Perfect. Now we need you to lay flat for the next day and a half. Okay. I don't know why. I don't need to know why. I need to just have faith. The more that I try to figure out the why, the more I'm going to be in resistance to what is. So I never try to figure out the why. I rest in absolute faith at this point that all is exactly the way it's supposed to be. So I just surrendered to being sick for the next 36 hours in my sleeping bag, completely asleep, not functioning or able to do anything. Like, literally asleep. I think my guide thought I was joking. I think he didn't realize how sick I really was. Because he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, like, I think it's just the fact that you're going in and out between the cold and the heat." And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. I have food poisoning." And he didn't wanna kind of accept that. Um, he didn't wanna accept that, which I get. He didn't wanna take responsibility for the fact that maybe the food was contaminated in some way, which I don't care. It didn't matter. It was supposed to happen. It was perfect. It was just absolutely perfect. But when I was in my sleeping bag the next day, all day long sleeping, only to get up to go to the bathroom. I think he realized at that point, like, "Oh, she's really sick." Um, and so for I, um day 2, I laid in a sleeping bag all day and slept. I was out. And what's interesting about that is this whole sort of trip before I went out before I went to the desert, and then, when I got home from the desert, it's been all about sleeping, deep rest. And so now that I kind of see it from this bigger perspective, like I'm outside of it, I realize that whatever was happening, it whatever initiation was going on, I needed to be laid out. And this is why it's really important that you trust and have faith in what's unraveling in your life. To think that there is a mistake, or that you're doing it wrong, or that it shouldn't be happening, um, it's only gonna create more conflict in you, more resistance, more of a fight, more of a state of suffering. When you start to really drop into the arms of God, that there is this divine essence leading you, and the more that you can have faith in it, the more you'll start seeing it working on your behalf. And what I mean by that is that when you start having faith in what's unraveling that you don't like, that you don't understand, and you wish wasn't happening, the more you have faith in that, the more you'll surrender into it, the more you'll move through it with grace. And then when you come out of it, you'll be able to see what was actually happening. But if you resist it, if you fight against it, if you try to fix it, change it, one, you may not come out of it right away because you're trying to get out of it. And two, when you get out of it, you won't look back and absorb and appreciate what happened. You'll just be looking forward, trying to go as far away from it as possible because you think it shouldn't have happened. So your back is turned to it, so you don't actually understand what it was God was trying to gift you. This happens to humanity all the time. They have experiences. I could have looked at this and been like, "I can't believe I got sick. This is ridiculous. What a waste of time. What a waste of energy." Like, why would this have happened? I'm so upset. Why didn't he clean his chicken? Why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? And I could have literally wasted an opportunity to drop into deep faith, surrender, allowing, and the ability to see the gift, which was, wow, something's been happening to my body while I slept. There's some sort of initiation going on, and I'm going to allow God to do what God needs to do right now. I trust that deeply. And then you know what God says? Thank you. Thank you for letting me do what it is I need to do with you. But what we typically do is the opposite. And we want to get away from it as much as possible. We want to run the other way and pretend it didn't happen and ignore it and deny it and resist it. And then we never actually see the gift that God wanted to gift us. So after day 3, so it was day 3, I wake up and I'm still feeling like, oof, I don't know, man. I'm feeling a little wonky. Um, but we had some guests. We had 3 guests that came to stay with us in the cave. So I stayed at the cave again for the 3rd night. And on the 3rd day, I went out and explored a little bit, um, and sat with God, connected with God. And it was on day 3 in the late afternoon. I drank so much water, obviously, but I drank a ton of water. And it was in the late afternoon of day 3. No, I apologize. It was in the early morning of day 4. So it was in the evening of day 3, the morning of day 4. It was pitch black. I woke up at like, I don't know, maybe it was 2 a.m. And I walk out and it is freezing cold, pitch black, clear skies, silent. And I go and sit on this rock. And I say to God, I was like, what do you want to what do you want to share? What do you want to tell me? And I'll never forget this moment. I felt God's voice. And it was a voice. It was a loud voice. And it was not an angel or a spirit or a galactic energy or Yeshua. It was when you hear God's voice, it's like nothing else. You just know it's God's voice. I can't really explain it. And obviously, God is not a person. Obviously, God is not a man or a woman standing at the pearly gates of heaven waiting to judge you and say you did good, you did bad. You get to go in, you get to go out. That's not God. God is an essence, a pulse like this, right? This light that just pulses. It's an alive essence. And when we interact with that essence, that light, there is this telepathy, right? My energetic field connects to that energetic field, and there becomes a conversation. And that conversation turns into words. Okay, so God doesn't actually speak. God doesn't have a mouth. God doesn't use words, right? God is an essence, this pulse or tone or frequency. And when you access God, you can feel it. And then when you feel it, you will describe it. Oh, it feels like love. It feels unconditional. It feels peaceful. It feels powerful, right? You use words to describe the energy. When God speaks to you, when there's a communication energetically back and forth, it is filtered through your system, your channel as words. And so that's what it means when people say, God spoke to me, this is what I heard God say. God didn't actually stand there and open up his mouth and say, all right, I am God. Everybody, please listen to me. That's not how it works. That's a very limited, constricted, restricted, third dimensional way of experiencing and understanding God, which is unfortunately how a lot of the Old Testament was written and created, was through that third dimensional, dense, dualistic reality. Because listen, anything that you filter into your body is going to be filtered by your persona, by your personality, by your ego, by your traumas, like by all of you, right? And so to get a real pure expression and voice of God would it's almost impossible because it has to be filtered through a human. Okay. So here's what God said to me. There was a real sense of concern. That's the energy, I would say. If there was like a way to sort of describe what I was feeling, it was almost like a concern, like a need to rattle humanity or shake humanity's shoulders. It's almost as if the feeling I got was that we are in a real deep state of amnesia. And I would even go so far as to say even those of us that think we are awake, um, even the awakened ones are in a are still in a deep state of amnesia. Like there's things that we're not recognizing still. There's things that we still have forgotten. That was the energy I was getting. And there needs to be like a wake up, a shake, which is what happens on the planet when there is a collective awakening. Something dramatic will happen and it will catapult a shift in humanity's consciousness, right? We saw that in COVID. It was the potential of 9/11 was gonna what there was a potential for 9/11 to do that, but it took years for humanity to wake up from that. So it didn't really have the impact it was designed to have. These moments like 9/11, these moments like COVID, these moments where the powers that be that have been controlling the planet create an event that allows for a moment of awakening is designed to catapult humanity into the awareness of what they're in. And but there's levels, there's constantly going to be these events, catastrophic or not so catastrophic, globally or in a country or a state that will assist in another level of awakening. But what I was feeling with God's message is that there is still a deep level of amnesia, that humanity is still caught in some really deep systems and programs that are keeping them in loops, all of us in loops. It's not our fault. There's nothing wrong with us, right? We're not doing it wrong or bad, or we're not making mistakes, or this isn't a bad thing or a negative thing or a dark thing. This is just an awareness, um, so that we can continue to humble ourselves to what we're in. Humility is one of the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves because humility allows for new states of awareness. When you are humble, you are okay with not knowing anything. If you know it all, you are going to be in resistance to awakening. If you ever get to a place where you think you've figured it all out, you've just walked into a wall. The more you can say, I don't really know. I don't know. I don't know. I could be right. I could be wrong. I don't know. I am open to knowing more. Then you just keep opening doors and you just keep opening more doors. But the moment we hold tight to an absolute is the moment we are stuck in a system. And if you're stuck in any absolute, you will turn and turn and turn. And eventually you will say, geez, man, nothing's happening here. I just keep going around in loops. My life isn't changing. I'm not actually expanding or awakening. It's like there should always be in our evolutionary shifts. We should be feeling differently. We should be moving through awakening, new states. It might take 6 months, a year, 2 years, but there should be movement. And so what God was trying to show me was we're stuck. Humanity's kind of stuck. And what he showed me was the 7 deadly sins. Basically, if God could talk, he would be like, "Look at the 7 deadly sins. Look at the 7 deadly sins." Uh, and God said, humanity has been pulled off of the organic timeline about 7,000 years ago. The organic timeline looks like this. You have a God particle inside of you. It's literally a particle. When you have you ever looked at any pictures of like a master like Jesus or Saint Germain or certain masters who've been massively derailed? Have you ever seen one of those photos and the light in their heart is on there's a light in their heart? Okay, well, that is what naturally occurs when the God particle is activated. Okay. And so the God particle is programmed with these codes that are designed to turn on. And when they turn on, they show us, gift us, allow us to live God like in the human body. It's a divine design, it's part of the evolution. And what happens is that we have a soul inside of us, okay? And this soul is connected to our spirit, and the spirit is connected to God. And so there's this umbilical cord almost of energy. It's an energetic cord, an umbilical cord from source to our spirit, which is what's split from God, and from spirit into soul, which is inside the body. And once it comes into the body through soul, it activates this particle naturally. But because God's light is so intense, the body has to increase in frequency more and more in order to hold God's light. God's light is much brighter, much higher frequency than our soul and spirit. And so because this is a dense physical vessel, all right, it takes time for the vessel to acclimate God's light. And so the natural organic timeline is our souls connected to spirit, which is connected to God. God's light is funneling through and into the physical vessel slowly, preparing to activate the God particle, all while the planet and the physical vessel are slowly increasing in frequency over time, over hundreds and thousands of years. Eventually, there is a moment that happens where the physical vessel is at a high enough frequency that the amount of light, God's light inside the body that it can hold, starts to turn on and activate the God particle. It's this beautiful moment where everything aligns perfectly and this particle begins to activate. And then human, start living God like in the human form, which is what evolution is. That's what the evolutionary process, that's what ascension is. It's the human living as human, reactivating that God particle to live God like in human form. That's what advanced humans did millions of years ago in the 5D. Their God particle was activated and they were living God like very differently than we are. Now, that is the organic timeline. Then what God showed me is the inorganic timeline is this. Prior to 7,000 years ago, humanity was moving along beautifully. We were God's light flowing in. Slowly, the body was starting to increase in frequency. The God particles started activating, and there were these advanced civilizations that started, right? And they were not based on a religion. They were not based on books. They were not based on any of that. They were based on their own divine connection to source, moving down into their body through spirit and soul, activating the God particle, and they naturally began to start living more godlike. They had all these new ways of seeing the world and being in the world. They started creating and building these civilizations, and then boom, 7,000 years ago, the spiritual battle began. These hybrid beings came back down onto the planet, and they began to corrupt and control humanity. They destroyed these civilizations, they destroyed these advanced humans, and guess what they did? Guess what they did? They started to infiltrate and manipulate the cord, the energetic cord that activated the God particle through the soul, the spirit, and creator. So they began to mess with it, infiltrate it through mind, through manipulation, and through creating systems and programs that would pull man's awareness out of this and out of God and into the external world where there are pleasures and desires and all the good things out there. Then what they eventually did is create specific religions that took off like wildfire that were based on fear, manipulation, control. But everything got derailed, like Josh said, right? Derailed Joshua. 7,000 years ago. And we started to walk down the inorganic timeline. And so, what ended up happening, God showed, was our divine, energetic umbilical cord became fuzzy. We, the God particle slowed down and almost turned off and became quiet. And then as humans began incarnating over and over again after hundreds of years and thousands of years, they didn't even know that there was a God particle. No recollection, no memory, none. They were gifted all of these stories and systems and programs about how to find God or reach God or connect with God, but they were all systems and programs that the powers that be put in place. Everything. Some cultures were able to bypass some of that infiltration, but for the most part, the majority of the planet had been infiltrated. And so humanity's organic ability to naturally allow for God's light to come in order to activate the God particle, in order to move humanity into godlike ways of being, got dismantled. And how they were able to do that was through pleasures, addiction, desire, fear, manipulation. And so, what God was showing me today in 2025 is that any story or program or system that does not simply remind humanity of the divine connection to creator and inviting creator's light back down in um like nectar, almost like a living breathing food source. Anything other than that, God said, is part of the manipulation, all of it. And that's very, very difficult for all of us to wrap our heads around. And by all means, we don't have to. This is information that may or may not resonate with you. Doesn't need to. Um, but this is why humanity has not expanded and evolved in the ways that we should have in the last 7,000 years. This is why you look out in the world and you're like, why are we not more advanced? Why are we still addicted? Why are we getting so addicted to our phones? Why are we falling into these nonsense loops of algorithms and division? And we wake up out of one story, COVID, and we think that we're all awake, and then we just fall right back into other systems and stories. Like why are we not evolving at the way in which you would think we would be evolving if we were God inside? Something's not right. Something's not computing. There's something off. And if we were humble and honest about it, we would recognize something's off. We're missing something big here on this planet. We can do all the work in our minds. We can do all the mental gymnastics in our minds, knowing everything, the way the world works, the way energy works, the way the quantum mechanics works, the way manifestation works, the way God works. We can understand all of it. But that doesn't do anything if we are not physically and tangibly bringing in the light of God into our bodies the way we are naturally designed to, right? And again, like it's not our fault. It's just a real deep slumber that we've forgotten. And we will resist this. We will fight against this. This is a middle way that's very narrow, that doesn't fit into a lot of systems and programs out there in the world right now. And so it's going to be an iffy little, you know, story that you may or may not follow right now, but makes sense. It makes sense. By the way, the other thing that God was showing me was as God enters into our lives more and more as a tangible nectar, right? Like a real living, breathing nectar, our lives are going to change dramatically in the best way possible. And we'll start realizing, like, oh my God, it is real. Like, we haven't been connected to God. Holy cow. We haven't been. Wait a second. And most of us haven't really experienced that God before. And so we're not really going to believe it because we kind of think that we know how to do it and that we're in charge. What God said to me in the desert was, the more man thinks they're in charge, man being human, right? The more man thinks they're in charge, that they're going to do it, that they're going to figure it out, the more they are in the system still. Like when you evolve, when we start evolving and connecting to these higher states of consciousness, you realize that the you that's been in control the whole time is not the one that's designed to be in control. This higher aspect, this God essence, is designed to walk side by side, intermingled like this with you, guiding you. Divine will versus free will. So the more advanced human merges with God's light in the body and lets God lead them. God being the essence of everything. This is how humanity is designed to live in the advanced states. This is exactly what we're going to be doing 50 years, 60 years, 100 years. Who knows how long it's going to take, but we're going to start merging physically and energetically, merging with God's light, and God is going to run the show. It's going to feel like you in a way because you're going to be having to make the choice. You're going to be choosing, but you're going to feel and know that God is actually running the show. And you're going to kind of laugh at yourself like, wow, I spent most of my life being in charge. How silly of me. right? Like I was the one that thought I was gonna be doing everything. I know everything. I know how to do this. I know how to do this. I am this. I am that. I. I. Where's God? Like, you're an aspect of God. You're designed to be both God-like and human together, intermingled. Where's God in the equation in your life? You can't say, "I am God," and simply be living your life as I. Where's God in the equation? You can't say, "I am God," and then live your life as I the whole time. Where's God? How often does God lead the day for you? How often is God showing you how to be and how to talk and how to respond? If you are God, how often is you that's God leading your life? How often do you think of God through the day? How often do you talk to God? We got to start asking these questions so that we can wake up out of the deep slumber that God's trying to get us to wake up out of. It's a massive game changer when we slowly, humbly, compassionately begin to look at ourselves, look at our behaviors, look at those seven deadly sins, look at how often we talk to God, how often we think about God during the day, how often we place God first, whatever God is to you. God can be whatever it is to you. It doesn't matter what God is to you, but God being the absolute essence of everything. And so the question becomes, how often are you inviting that into your life? How often are you communing with that? How often are you asking that to walk in and to guide you and to show you and to lead you? Or are you more concerned with how much money you're making and, if you have a big enough house or, what kind of relationship you have and if you need to go find another relationship or all the things that we think we need to be concerned with in order to make us happy and content and safe in life. No matter what situation we're in, no matter what, if we are in warlike situations, if we are homeless, if we have no job, what if we are sick, whatever situation we are in, there is still room for God. If you are wealthy and a millionaire traveling the world, just continuing to make more and more money, where is God in your equation? It ain't a doing thing. So anywho, got off course. I have 1 minute left. The point is where's God? And to sum up my trip, I ended up spending one more night out there in the desert and ended up leaving early because I just wasn't feeling well. And when I got home on the 11th, I've been sleeping. I have been sleeping in my office on and off all day long. So there is some I'm finally feeling better. And I feel very different. I feel very, 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 very different. I can't tell you what God does in your life, but when you start giving your life to God, I'm telling you, miracles happen. Like it's just insane. I feel so different today than I did 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, definitely before I left for the trip. I feel more confident in what I need to share about with God. I feel more at peace. I feel more calm. I feel more connected to myself. I feel more aligned with myself. I feel more aligned with God. It's like all these things that happen, you guys, as you start committing more and more to this essence of God. It's like your life slowly shifts depending upon how much you're willing to commit to it and to give to it. So, anywho, That's my I could go on and on about my trip, but I really wanted to try to squeeze in what God said. Um, there'll be more that I will share, perhaps, I don't know. But, all of this to say, just let this simmer within you. See if it resonates. Think about it. Think about how the world looks to you right now. Think about all the systems that you've been in. Think about all the ways that you've been spinning and turning and going around and around in circles. Ask yourself, like, has anything actually really changed in my life? Um, like, and how much of it am I doing? How exhausted am I? What if this is true, what she's saying? What if that is the inorganic timeline that's been happening for 7,000 years? What if it is as simple as beginning to invite God's light back in? What if that is the hidden gem that we've been denied and ignored and lied to about? It's worked for me. It's what God's been showing me. It's what Jesus has been showing me. The other thing is like, Jesus is like, yo, Lorie. I'm like, yes. He's like, what do you think the Holy Spirit is? And I'm like, come again, Jesus? Come again? He says, Lorie? I said, yes. He says, what do you think the Holy Spirit is? And I was like, oh, it's the holy light of God. He says, yes. And do you remember what happened with John the Baptist? I said, I sure do. You went into the river of Jordan, the Jordan River. You got baptized, buddy. And he said, and what else? And the Holy Spirit descended down into your body. He said, yes. Why? What is the Holy Spirit again, Lorie? And I said, the light of God. This is literally how my conversations go with Jesus. The light of God. He says, and why would it descend down into my body? Why would I need the light of God to descend down into my body? And I was like, I don't know, to activate the God particle. And he said, yeah. He said, it doesn't matter who you are, you're still in a physical vessel. You're still in a physical reality. You can't defy physics. God's light still needs to come in. God's light still needs to descend down into the physical vessel. There's a reason, he said, that I spoke about that. I was like, well, why weren't you a little more clear on this whole, Holy Spirit thing? You know, a little more like, the God particle needs to be activated. And he said, Lorie, there's a lot that I spoke of that didn't get translated, that didn't get written down, that didn't get passed along. And I was like, oh, touche. Touche. Anyway, all of that to say there's something to this, you guys. There is something to this. I love you. I will see you next Tuesday. If you want to join us for our live 2-hour event, opening 2026, it's going to be a fun, powerful event. The link is below. And if you want to hang out with Jesus for 21 days, curious about that, the link is down below. We start January 14th. It's called Walk with Jesus. I will see you next Tuesday. And if you are in SOAR, I will see you tomorrow for our group coaching call. I love you guys. Take care. Mwah.